God's word is spread abroad, so that we need not to speak anything. So they had this testimony, but they're not just having testimony in Thessalonica. They're having a testimony through everywhere around there. They're examples to all those little regions around there. They were a godly example to believers all in those regions there. They sounded out the word in verse 8. They speak it. And they have a testimony to all those abroad of their conversion. But notice what their testimony is. Their testimony is not only of the gospel of Jesus Christ, but notice, for they themselves show of us what manner of entering in we had unto you, and how you turned to God from idols to serve the living and true God. So their testimony is all about their conversion. And every child of God ought to have a testimony of their conversion, what the Lord has brought you from. And we always look back. You find people who have unique testimonies, what the Lord has brought them out of, what the Lord has brought them from. And you'll have those who have dealt with drug addiction or alcoholism or whatever background you want to think of. But there's not a child of God who's been born again that doesn't have a fallen background that you can share that God has brought you from. That is what all of us had. And notice, he turned them from idols to serve the living and true God. And all of us have that testimony within us. They were waiting for the rapture as well. It says, and to wait for his Son from heaven, whom he raised from the dead, even Jesus, which delivered us from the wrath to come. So they're waiting for Jesus. They're waiting for him to come from heaven. And at the rapture, Christ will return. He's going to return from heaven. In verse 10 it tells us there. And at the rapture, notice what else he's going to do. He's going to deliver us from the wrath to come. Now, there's a teaching that talks about the rapture takes place, and the Scripture declares to us that the rapture is going to save us from the wrath to come. Well, then it becomes, how do we define the wrath to come? What is the wrath to come? If you go over and study the book of Revelation, you get down to Revelation chapter 6. And at the end of Revelation chapter 6, there's no denying whatsoever that the end of chapter 6 is the wrath to come. You know why? Because it literally says it's the wrath of the Lamb right there. So the wrath of the Lamb at the end of chapter 6. However, all of chapter 6 begins to break it down. And at the end of chapter 6, they're hiding from the wrath of the Lamb. So they're already in it. The wrath of the Lamb has come, or is come as it's worded. But it's past tense. It's already taking place there. But there's many who deny that and try to put his wrath later on. Always remember this when I taught my Revelation class. It's the wrath of the Lamb because only the Lamb could open the first seal. Nobody else can open it. How can it be the wrath of anybody else if only the Lamb can open it? It is his wrath. Revelation 6 declares it is his wrath. And here in 1 Thessalonians, Paul tells us that Jesus Christ has delivered us from the wrath to come. Okay, and we can spend all day in that, but some here, many people believe that the wrath to come puts us after mid-tribulation. I'm a pre-tribber. I'm a pre-tribber because I truly believe this epistle, as well as several other epistles Paul writes, talks about that Jesus could come back, and usually the term imminent just simply means that he can come back at any moment. He can come back at any moment. If he's going to come back at mid-trib, then he can't come back at any moment. He can only come back after the Antichrist has set himself up, after the Antichrist has revealed himself, and after the Antichrist has made his covenant. He can't come back before. So why is Paul writing epistles telling them to be ready, to look for Jesus, that he could come back at any second? Why is he revealing those things if the rapture of Jesus is not imminent? All right, so they were waiting for Jesus. They're waiting for him to come. Why are they waiting for him and not waiting for the Antichrist? If tribulation or the rapture is going to take place after. They're waiting on Jesus. They're not looking for Antichrist. They're looking for Jesus. Nowhere in the Bible does it teach us to look for the Antichrist. All right, we're going to stop right there. We'll pick up chapter 2 next week. Chapter 2 next week.